Welcome back to the Dynasty Kings podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and as you can see, Austin is not here this week. He got fired. No, just kidding. He could not make it this week, unfortunately, so it will just be me talking about the week 9 of the NFL. We got a pretty good slate this week. Besides a couple games, of course. You're always going to have those trash games, but let's dive right into it. And this week, I had to take on all of Austin's responsibilities. He always takes over half the slate, and then I do the other half. So I had to do double the work. I'm really locked into this week. I know it's going to happen, so y'all are just going to have to believe me. Let's kick it off with our first game, which is going to be in Frankfurt, Germany. It's going to be the first German game of the season. I think it's the only German game of the season, but we got the Chiefs versus the Dolphins, which just might be the best regular season matchup of the season. Possible AFC championship preview, so that's exciting. But listen, I promise we'll get to some spicier picks later in the episode, but for right now, I'm starting it off easy. You're going to start Patrick Mahomes, okay? And I know. It's just with these two teams, there's so many guys that are just obvious starts. You're obviously going to start Travis Kelce. You're obviously going to start Tyreek Hill. You're most likely starting Jalen Waddle. Oh my God. Raheem Mostert, Jesus. Raheem Mostert is probably going to be a start for you as well. So in a matchup like this, who am I supposed to say, bro? I'm not going to say to start River Craycraft. I'm not going to say to start Noah Gray. It's just not going to happen. So I'm taking advantage of Patrick Mahomes having a bad week last week, the worst game of his career. So if that scares anybody saying, oh, I don't know if I should start Patrick Mahomes this week because of what he did last week, please, okay? He's still, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the NFL. Maybe not for fantasy, but for fantasy, he's still top 3, top 5 at worst. So he's coming off. Listen, people are forgetting he had the flu last week, so he wasn't healthy. Now it's not like he was injured, but his insides were injured, so I guess it's still kind of an injury. But it affects how you play, and I know it didn't affect Michael Jordan, but Patrick Mahomes isn't Michael Jordan, completely different sport. Nevertheless, Mahomes should have a really good game. I think Tua is also going to have a really good game. I'm really hoping that this is one of those games that, we just remember at the end of the season as, oh my God, I can't believe that game was just so crazy. So that's really what we're hoping for here. I'm expecting it to be a high passing game. I still do think that Raheem Mostert gets some work in the run game. And I think Pacheco will have a decently good game too. So start everybody in this matchup, including Mahomes, even after coming off of his worst career game. So now we're going to take you to the Vikings versus the Falcons. It's going to be in Atlanta. And I told you we were going to get spicy, so let's get spicy fast. Now, you guys are not going to agree with me. You guys aren't going to start this guy. But I'm saying to start Scordero Patterson, okay? Listen, Bijan is still that guy. He's still going to be the starting running back in Atlanta. Tyler Algier is still going to get work, but Cordero Patterson in a revenge game against the team that drafted him, I'm here for that narrative, okay? Drake London is out, so they're going to need someone to pass the ball to. Now, is it going to be Kyle Pitts? Is it going to be Jonnu Smith? Probably. They're going to get some work, and I think that they'll both also have decent games, but I got to go with Cordero Patterson here. Listen, I'm by myself here, okay? I had to come up with some spicy picks. Cordero Patterson is my guy. He has to score eventually this season, right? So I think this will be the game that he does it. The Vikings, as you can see, they're in shambles right now. Kirk Cousins is on IR with that Achilles injury. He's going to miss the rest of the season. It's super tragic. And, this is just a game between two backup quarterbacks, between Taylor Heineke and Jaren Hall. Now, Jaren Hall was, I think, a 5th or 6th round rookie quarterback this year, so we'll see how he pans out. I don't think he's going to have a Will Levis type of game, so I don't think that the Vikings are really going to, constantly be winning this game. It's going to be an ugly game no matter what. Taylor Heineke can shine, but he's only had one career 300-yard passing game, so I'm just expecting a lot of running the football for the Falcons this week, and I know it's impossible to predict how Arthur Smith is going to run the offense every week. So that's why, you know what? Sometimes you got to throw in Cordero Patterson. We don't know what's going to happen. You know, if Cordero's going to score a touchdown this year, it's going to be in this game. So, you know, obviously start guys like Raheem Mostert, other guys that I'll mention in this episode over Cordero. I keep wanting to call him Scordero. But listen, if you're in a deep league with some bye weeks and Cordero Patterson's on the waiver wire, I don't mind the dart throw this week, okay? So, moving on, we're going to Bears at the Saints in New Orleans in the Superdome. I got Derek Carr as my guy of the week. Now, he has 3 straight games of over 300 yards passing. I know he has not looked that good, but the numbers don't lie. And, I mean, honestly, they do kind of lie sometimes, but with Derek Carr in 3 straight games of 300-yard passing, I mean, that's good for fantasy. What you need is the fantasy numbers, and this guy's been producing no matter how ugly it looks. And the Bears allow 270 passing yards per game on average. So that's 30 yards away from 300 if you can't do quick math. And then Jaquan Brisker is still out with a concussion. He missed last week with a concussion, and he's gonna miss this week again with the same concussion. So that's their. I mean, in my opinion, besides maybe Jalen Johnson, he's their best player in their secondary that they have. So I think, and I mean, it's going to be good for Derek Carr, who likes to throw it deep a lot. So I'm expecting a big game out of Derek Carr again. I would also say that you could feel reasonably comfortable starting a guy like Rashid Shaheed. I was actually between starting him or George Pickens in one of my leagues. I went with George Pickens, and obviously I'm regretting it. I think Rashid Shaheed is going to have a much better game than 2 catches for -1 yards, which is what George Pickens had on Thursday. So I'm comfortable starting Rashid Shaheed, comfortable starting Derek Carr, comfortable starting Chris Olave, and Michael Thomas as well. Also comfortable. I think that the Saints should shred the Bears in the Superdome. So moving on, we got Rams at Packers, and this one's kind of rough. This one kind of hurts my heart a little bit, especially because this is my guy. But I'm saying to sit Puka Nacua. It hurts. It really, really hurts. This has been my guy since the draft, since before the draft, since my draft scouting process. I've loved Puka Nacua, but he's been dealing with some knee swelling, and it's just he's put in limited practices all week, or sometimes not even practice this week, and it sucks to see. Now, I'm not necessarily concerned about that as much. The main thing I'm saying to sit Puka Nacua this week is Matthew Stafford is dealing with a sprained UCL in his right thumb, which he's a righty. So dealing with a thumb injury in your throwing hand, it's I can't say it's impossible, but it is extremely hard to grip the football when you have a thumb injury. So I think that if I'm the Rams, if I'm Sean McVay, I'm telling Stafford to just take it easy this week. Listen, you can afford a couple losses in the season. Now, of course, at the end of the season, every win counts, but you don't want to risk your franchise quarterback. I know he's like ancient, like 35 or something, but you don't want to risk him further injuring his thumb on his throwing hand for a game that I know it's against the Packers. I know that it's going to be a competitive game. They need to win this game, but you don't need to risk Matthew Stafford for the rest of the season just off one game. And I say all this because they have their bye week next week. So setting Matthew Stafford for this game would be crucial. I think it's a really good idea to bench him for this week. Not talking to fantasy managers, talking to Sean McVay and the Rams organization. So that's why I'm just sitting Puka Nacua this week. We're going to take it easy. If you have other options there, start the other options. And just, Rams, please just take it easy on the offense this week. Kind of take the L or leave it to Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman. Have a big run game and see what you have out of your backup quarterback. So yeah, I'm sitting Puka Nacua. Also sitting Cooper Kupp for the same reason as well. I just don't trust the passing offense this week. And the Packers are a good passing defense as well. So kind of just taking it easy on the Rams. And like I said, Jordan Love last week sucks. And he proved it. He still sucks. So just want to throw that out there. Don't start Jordan Love. He's cuttable. Don't even have him as a bench quarterback unless you're in like a freaking 16-man league or something. Like, he is just so bad. He's so bad. So, moving on to the next game, we got Commanders versus Patriots. And this is going to be the grossest start in Dynasty Kings podcast history. So, I'm sorry to everyone listening. Oh, God. I got to drink some water. Listen, we're going to take a quick water break. I want everybody that's watching to get a little hydrated, get some water flowing through your system. Since it's just me and no Austin, I've been doing a lot of talking this episode, so we're going to take a quick water break. All right. And now we're going to get back into this game. This game is so gross, I had to drink water there because it, like, makes my mouth... Like, you know that morning feeling when you haven't brushed your teeth yet? Even thinking about saying this name has given me that feeling. Like, I want to go brush my teeth right now. Commanders versus Patriots. I'm telling y'all, the start of the week is Juju Smith-Schuster. I know what you're thinking. It's so gross. It's so gross. Juju Smith-Schuster has been a disappointment since leaving Pittsburgh. It's been sad for him because at one point he was the Dynasty wide receiver 1, like 3 years ago. Everyone was drafting him, had super high hopes, thought that he was going to be the Steelers' future wide receiver 1 after Antonio Brown left. Just never panned out for him. But this week, against the Commanders, Devontae Parker was ruled out. I'm recording this on Saturday, and I think I'm also going to be posting it on Saturday if I have enough time to edit. So we're also super up to date at this point. Usually we record on Friday. Now we're recording on Saturday, recording this today. So Devontae Parker has been ruled out. Kendrick Bourne is on IR, which he played last week. Now, I think he's supposed to miss the rest of the season, which really sucks for the Patriots because he's been, like the one shining star on their offense this season. And so they're limited. It's just Juju Smith-Schuster and Demario Douglas, and then we'll see if they activate Kayshon Boutte, the rookie wide receiver out of LSU this week. But Juju caught a touchdown last week. I know it was in garbage time. I know it was his only target of the entire game. But listen, a touchdown is 6 points for your fantasy team. I mean, depending on your scoring. But usually it's 6 points for your fantasy team. And the Commanders give up the second most points to opposing wide receivers. So if there's ever a time that Juju is going to break out this season and prove that he is a good signing for this Patriots team, it's going to be this week. So, listen, obviously you're starting guys like Jalen Waddle and, players like him over Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not saying he's a must start. But listen, man, if Matthew Stafford isn't playing and Puka Nakua's knee injury is still bothering him, God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't mind starting Juju Smith-Schuster over Puka Nacua this week. And looking directly into the camera and saying that makes me just want to end the entire episode right here and just never post it and immediately throw this into the trash. But it's what we've come down to. It's week 9 in the NFL, so I'm saying crazy shit. So, moving on, I don't want to talk about that game anymore. Commanders versus Patriots. I don't even want to see it on Red Zone unless it's a Juju Smith-Schuster touchdown at this point, because it's just going to be ugly. It's going to be an ugly game. Moving on to a good game that I think is going to be still low scoring, but two very competitive teams. The Seattle Seahawks versus the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this sucks because my player of the week is a sit this week, and I'm probably going to end up starting him in a couple leagues, but it's Gus Edwards. Now listen, last week he was the RB1, the highest scoring running back last week. But let's pump the brakes, okay? They played the Arizona Cardinals, who are bottom 3 in rush defense. They give up the third most amount of points to opposing running backs. So, and the week before, I believe Gus Edwards was the RB6, but that was against a poor run D as well. So I know he's been having 2 really good weeks back to back now, and he made some interesting comments saying that he's ready to take a huge load this week. Very interesting choice of words, but I think that it's going to be a really defensive-minded game, and the Seahawks run defense, it's not the best in the league, but it's far from the worst. So I think that they're going to be able to contain Gus Edwards a lot more than people are really giving them credit for. And I don't think that Gus Edwards is going to have an RB1 type of week this week, which I could be wrong. I'm still starting him in some weeks. He's getting the workload that you want out of a running back, especially in these times where running back is kind of hard to find. But just pump the brakes on him a little bit. I'm not expecting a top 10 week out of him. Probably closer to 10 to 20, maybe even 20 to 30 this week. We'll see. I think that it's going to be more of Seattle getting the lead early with DK Metcalf coming back. Tyler Lockett's off the injury report. They're looking really healthy on offense. So the only thing that I could see causing some problem is their O-line. The Seattle's O-line is terrible, and I think the Ravens are going to take advantage of that. So I'm just thinking that it's going to be a game that is going to be low scoring. I'm projecting like 24 to like 20. So if Gus Edwards gets a touchdown in there, good for him. Good to those that are starting him. I'm still starting him, but I shouldn't say to sit him, but maybe just lower the expectations a little bit this week. Moving on, though, we got the Tampa Bay Bucks versus the Houston Texans. Now, for those of y'all that are kind of plugged in, and especially those I almost said Damian Harris, but Damian Pierce owners, you know that Damian Pierce is out this week. So everyone's kind of scurrying to the waiver wire, trying to add Devin Singletary, thinking that Devin Singletary is going to be, having a huge game. But that's my player of the week this week, and I'm telling y'all to sit him. Listen, he's not that good. I watched him in Buffalo for, 3-4 years, and he just never could take that job away. And I know that, it was him and Zach Moss, and now Zach Moss is absolutely balling in Indy, but Devin Singletary is just not him, bro. He's just not good. I'm sorry. Now, listen, I do think that he is a good... I do still think that you should go to the waiver wire, see if he's a free agent, and add him. I think that he's an add and stash type of player, but don't start him this week against the Bucs defense. The Bucs still have a top 5 rushing defense in the NFL, and I just don't think that Devin Singletary is going to find the space in this rough defense. So I'm expecting CJ Stroud to eat. I think that Tank Dell is going to have a good game, and the Bucs, I believe is their defensive coordinator. They said this week that the Texans run. It really caught my eye because it's actually very interesting. The Texans run a very similar offense to the 49ers, in which Tank Dell is kind of their Debo Samuel, and then Nico Collins is more of their Brandon Ayuk, which is really interesting. Obviously, they don't really have a George Kittle role, and Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary are not anywhere near as good as Christian McCaffrey, even if you combined their talents. So, but those two aspects of Tank Dell and Nico Collins kind of being like Debo and Brandon Ayuk, I actually found really interesting and can definitely agree with. So I think that they could kind of really do some work against the Buccaneers this week. But Devin Singletary, I'm not expecting much out of him. But moving on, we got Cardinals at the Browns. So Deshaun Watson's back this week, and he's just not very good. I've always publicly said since college, I just never thought that he was a winner. And I know a lot of people, he was on Clemson and they won a national title, so obviously he's a winner. I don't care. I just never saw it out of him. I don't think that football is really his number one priority in life. That's just what I see. And he's having a bad season. I mean, I know he's riddled with injury, yada, 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 whatever. He's not even my player of the week. I'm only talking about him because he's back this week. I'm not expecting big things. We saw him come back earlier this year, and he was absolutely terrible, ended with negative fantasy points that week. My player of the week is actually going to be his running back, and it's going to be Jerome Ford. Now, I say it's going to be Jerome Ford. His ankle injury was scary. He, I think, sprained his ankle, twisted his ankle, something 2 weeks ago. And as you can see, Milo in the back. Milo, you being in the video? Milo is actually the new host. Sorry, Austin, you've been replaced. But Jerome Ford, like I said, his ankle injury 2 weeks ago was scary. It was supposed to be a 2 to 3 week injury, but he played last week and he didn't look great. Kareem Hunt led the team in carries and touches. So Kareem Hunt is back on the Browns. I think that that's really good for them. I'm just laughing because Milo just loves being in the video, loves being in the episode. So um, let me let me focus back up on Jerome Ford. His ankle should be feeling better this week. It was supposed to be a 2 to 3 week injury. It ended up being a 0 week injury. So it should be better this week regardless. We could start to see him ramping up more on his opportunities, even though Kareem Hunt has scored in the past 2 games. But the Cardinals allow the third most points to running backs. And last week, they made Gus Edwards the highest scoring running back. So I'm not expecting Jerome Ford to have 3 touchdowns like Gus Edwards had last week, but I definitely think Jerome Ford is kind of looking towards, I would say, around 16 carries, maybe about 80 yards and a touchdown in there. So I think that he's a good start this week against the Cardinals. Moving on to the Colts at the Panthers. This is the first 4 o'clock game. All the games before that were 1 o'clock, and then obviously the Germany game. This is our first 4 o'clock game, and we have the Frank Reich revenge game, going from the Colts former head coach to now the Panthers current head coach. And he actually had some words to say about that, saying that there's no personal beef between him and the Colts. Yada yada yada. Whatever, man. We know that you want to beat your former team, but I'm here to say it's not going to happen. Frank Reich is not a great coach. He shouldn't even be the Panthers head coach. And that's why my player of the week is Zach Moss. And I know y'all are quick to thinking, oh, well, Jonathan Taylor's back, you idiot. Well, I think Jonathan Taylor's going to have a good game too. I think they're both just I think that they're actually probably the best 1-2 running back punch in the NFL right now. The Panthers allow the second most points to opposing running backs. So, Frank Reich, I don't care about your revenge game. You're going to allow so many yards to Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor that it's not going to matter. So, I think that they're just going to run the ball down the Panthers' throats. And another thing, too, is that Josh Downs, as of yesterday, so Friday, he popped up on the injury report with a knee injury and is now questionable for the game. I mean, if Josh Downs misses this game, what's stopping the Colts from literally running the ball every single play and being successful? Because the Panthers aren't going to stop it. So I'm starting Zach Moss, who, by the way, is a top 5 fantasy running back this year, even with JT back. Now, obviously, when JT wasn't there and he was on IR, on the pup, whatever it was, Zach Moss was getting a lot more opportunity, and Zach Moss's opportunities have been going down since JT's been back. But nevertheless, the guy still gets the ball. He's still getting the opportunities. So I say you still start him with confidence until further notice, especially this week. So Zach Moss and JT, Jonathan Taylor, for those of you that don't know, I think JT is like Justin Timberlake. No. Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, start him this week. Don't think twice about it. Moving on, Giants versus the Raiders. This might be the worst game on the slate. Now, the Vikings and Falcons were a bad game because they're both starting 2 backup quarterbacks. The Giants, listen, they have Daniel Jones back, but at this point, he's as good as a backup quarterback. I said it, okay? And then the Raiders are actually starting a backup quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. So hopefully that he has a better game than Jimmy Garoppolo has been having. But I'm actually sitting Daniel Jones this week. Like I said, he's been playing like a bench player. He has not been playing well at all. And I know he's been injured the past couple weeks, but his number 1 target, Darren Waller, is out still. It might be a season-ending injury. We don't really know yet because Darren Waller is just so injury-prone that, I mean, if you ended up drafting him, I'm sorry. I was never in on him. I have 0 shares of him because I know how injury-prone he is. And it's rough for the Giants. Giants fans out there, my condolences go out to you. But Andrew Thomas, the one bright side is that Andrew Thomas could come back this week. He's still questionable. Him and Evan Neal, both their 2 starting tackles are questionable. I think that Andrew Thomas does make it back for this game, but I don't really think that it's going to affect their offense too much. Like, I just don't think that the Giants are good at all. I mean, they're a bottom 3 offense. Both of these teams, the Giants and Raiders, are bottom 3 offenses in the NFL. And, oh my God, it's just so ugly. And then the Raiders' new head coach, As you can see, well, as you might know, the Raiders just fired their starting GM and their starting GM. The Raiders just fired their general manager, their head coach, and replaced their starting quarterback this week. So they have a completely different vibe to them. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, all these people are new. They're not new. The guy that they have as their new head coach, Antonio Pierce, has been there. He knows he has that connection with the players. So I think that they are willing to run through a brick wall for this guy. They don't care about Josh McDaniels. I mean, the guy stunk. You saw what Chandler Jones was saying about him. I mean, now I don't think that Chandler Jones was being honest about a lot of those things. I think that he was a little loopy, but I think that they're ready to win games and run through a brick wall for this guy. And I know Antonio Pierce, fun fact, actually used to play for the Giants. The Raiders' new head coach used to play for the Giants, and I think that he's going to want to win this game more than anything in his entire life. And then the last little note that I have on this game is that Max Crosby, I don't know if y'all saw the video, a little shaky, but Max Crosby told fans to come to this game. So I think the Raiders really do have a whole other vibe to them, and they're still the favorite to win this game. Even with a new head coach, new general manager, new quarterback, they're still the betting favorite to win this game against the Giants, which is really sad, especially when their starting quarterback is coming back. So I think Vegas knows that Daniel Jones coming back this week doesn't mean anything. So he's my sit of the week. Now, moving on to another really good game. We got the Cowboys at the Eagles, the battle of the NFC East powerhouses. Now, I know that last week I said to start A.J. Brown. I said he was going to go over 200 yards. He didn't go over 200 yards, whatever. He went over 125 again, so broke that record. He had 130. I'm not going to say to start him again. It's obvious. You're starting A.J. Brown every single week. You're probably starting Devontae Smith every single game too, but it's getting a little dicey for him. I'm not going to lie. I was looking up his stats before this, and he might be teetering on whether I should start to talk about him or not. So look out for that next week. Actually, I think they're on bye next week, so the week after maybe. I definitely sit him if he's on bye. But this week, I'm telling you to sit Tony Pollard, a guy that has been super disappointing this year. He has 0 touchdowns since week 1. Now, week 1, he did have, I believe, 2 touchdowns, but maybe one. But nevertheless, week 2 and onward, he has 0 touchdowns. Rushing, receiving, 0. So he actually also has 0 receiving touchdowns this whole season. So he's been really disappointing. And the Eagles have a top 3 run defense in the NFL. So this is not going to be the week that he gets back on track. And, is that, hopeful round 2, round 3, round 4 running back that you picked in your drafts. He's just been really disappointing. And I don't think that he's going to have a good game this week as well. So, but it is going to be a really good game. I'm really excited for that. I do think the Eagles probably take the win because it's in Philly. But you never know with these division games, especially with these 2 powerhouse teams. So hopefully we got a really good one. But that'll be the last of the 4 o'clock slate. Just 3 games this week, so that kind of sucks. I hate that. I hate that there's so many 1 o'clock games and only 3 4 o'clock games most weeks. Like, just give us 5 4 o'clock games and lower the amount of 1 o'clock games. Whatever. Done with that rant. We're moving on to Sunday Night Football, Bills versus Bengals, and I just realized how many sits I have in this episode. Just not a whole lot of starts, because most of the guys that you're starting are just obvious starts at this point. But for this week, for this game, Bills versus Bengals, it's going to be an emotional game, I know. But we're sitting James Cook. You're going to start Josh Allen. You're going to start Joe Burrow. You're going to start Jamar Chase. You're going to start Stephon Diggs. So the only other guys that we could really talk about are James Cook, Gabe Davis, T. Higgins, who's been another really disappointing player, and then maybe Tyler Boyd. And then you're obviously probably going to start Dalton Kincaid unless you have a guy like Travis Kelce or TJ Hawkinson, which I would start even with Jaron Hall there. I didn't really touch on that, but I think that TJ Hawkinson could still have a good game with Jaron Hall as the starting quarterback for this week. I would probably start Dalton Kincaid over him, not going to lie, because Dawson Knox is still out. So just want to touch on that before talking about James Cook. Start Kincaid with confidence over guys like TJ Hawkinson and even Mark Andrews against the Seahawks. So, yeah, I think that actually I probably should have just put Dalton Kincaid as my star of the week since I'm talking about him so much. But I'm sitting James Cook. Just because the Bills signed Leonard, not just because, but they signed Leonard Fournette, and I think Leonard Fournette is going to take a lot of the passing work, which was kind of James Cook's role in the offense. Lat Murray is still there, and he's going to be the goal line back still, but I think that Leonard Fournette is sneakily going to take away a lot of passing work from James Cook, and I think that this game is going to be a really pass-heavy game. I mean, the Bengals have just been coming alive these past couple weeks. I mean, they beat the 49ers last week. So I think that they could easily, the Bills are coming into Cincinnati. They're coming into the jungle. And I think that this is going to be Joe Burrow's game. I don't want to hype him up anymore, have him be a must-start player because he's back in that tier where you're starting him no matter what, unless you have, a guy like Patrick Mahomes or Tua or something like that. But still, I would say start Joe Burrow this week as well because this is going to be a high-passing game. Probably going to be a high-scoring game, too. These defenses are pretty banged up and have lost a lot of guys in free agency. So I'm definitely really excited for this Sunday Night Football game, especially compared to next week's Sunday Night Football game. If you know, you know. It's going to be bad. I'm not even going to bring it up until next week. But moving on, we got our last game of the slate, or of the week. We got Monday Night Football, Chargers versus Jets. And I'm not too excited about this game, I'm not going to lie, especially compared to the primetime games that we have tomorrow, which I don't know if I'm going to be releasing this on Sunday or Saturday, so whatever. But my sit of the week for this game is going to be Quentin Johnston. And I know Josh Palmer is doubtful, but Jalen Guyton is possibly coming off of IR this week. We could see him either coming back this week or next week. Either way, Quentin Johnston has just been a huge bust so far, and I'm not expecting him to come back and ball out for this game because the Jets allowed the last amount of points to opposing wide receivers. They lock them down. That is a no-fly zone in New York. So I know Mike Williams is still on IR, but Quentin Johnston is just he's not that good a player. I'm sorry. He's one of those TCU busts like we've seen with Jalen Reagor, and it sucks for Chargers fans and sucks for everybody that had high hopes because his draft profile was looking pretty good. I think he's like 6'4", doesn't run super well, but I mean he's not the slowest receiver in the NFL by any means. But the reason that I'm sitting him this week is, again, the Jets' passing defense has just been absolutely elite. And another reason, too, is Keenan Allen has a 26% target share in this offense. The guy's going to get the ball. Even if Sauce Gardner's on him, he's going to get past, too. I don't care. Justin Herbert absolutely loves this guy, and for good reason. Keenan Allen is one of the best players in the NFL right now, at the wide receiver position, of course. Even though he's 31 or 32. So he's still proven that he has juice left and got gas left in the tank. And I think that this is going to be just another underwhelming game. I mean, it sucks to say. I think that Breece Hall is going to have another pretty good game, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a pretty mid game. But with that being said, glad y'all tuned in. It's just me this week, so hopefully I didn't annoy you too much. I know everyone misses Austin. He's so dreamy. He's such a star. And it sucks that he wasn't here. We didn't even bet the car on anything this week. So, what an off week. Sucks that he couldn't be here. But expect him back next week for the Week 10 show. We will see y'all then. Peace.